Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, this is Dr. Keith McNally, and this is the Question Guy podcast. I am here with Jyoti Sarda, and I do believe I got that right. And she
Really?
has an incredible story to tell us that she wants to share with the world. And so this is going to be an interesting journey into her story. And I don't want to muddle it. So, Joe, and I do, with permission, I get to call you Joe.
Yes, absolutely.
Where do you want to start the conversation?
So we can start at the very beginning, because I feel like that will give a whole perspective on what actually happened and where did it lead, you know.
Okay.
Um, so we can start where I was having very bad back trouble, and for my back trouble, I was given cocodamol, which was quite high strength. And when I came off the cocodamol, I didn't realize that I'd become dependent on it because when I didn't take it, I couldn't do anything because obviously when you can't move your back, you can't sit, right? You can't sit comfortably, you can't meet friends, you can't walk comfortably, you know. Um, so I'd realized that I'd got quite dependent on the cocodamol and I decided to come off it because I realized that instead of trying to fix the problem with my back, I just kind of became a little bit complacent and thought, well, I can deal with the pain, so everything's fine. So I sort of had a word with myself and I said, no, I am definitely getting dependent on this and I need to come off it. And when I came off the cocodamol is where the problem came from
Okay.
because I was walking down a corridor, and as I was walking down the corridor, I literally felt like I can't breathe. I felt like I'm not going to get out of here. And I had one of the worst panic attacks you can imagine. Um, Prior to that, I'd never had a panic attack, so I didn't actually know what was going on. So it was really confusing.
Mhm.
But that incident led me to believe that I cannot be in closed spaces. So from that point on,
Well, before you go on, when that happened and you never had one before, how did how did you respond? Because that's a scary situation for
absolutely.
anybody because they're not quite sure what's going on. And so can you talk about that a little bit? You know,
Yeah,
how did you
absolutely.
react to it?
So my reaction was, I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I need space. So the first thing I did was look for the exit. So I just turned back round and found the exit and just
Okay.
got outside. And I
Okay.
just
So
felt,
you found yourself a safe place. Okay. Okay. Did it
hmm,
then recede or
no,
oh,
no, it
okay.
got worse. It got worse because what happened then is suddenly like I was on the street and I felt like the streets were too close together. I felt like the buildings are too close together. The roads, everything was too close together. And I realized that I had claustrophobia. Like I was diagnosed with claustrophobia.
Okay. So you did, as a reaction, did you go to a
I went
doctor
back to
again?
the GP. I went back to the GP
Okay. Okay.
because I was really confused and really
Okay.
panicked. And, in my head, it was like, well, who's going to know what's going on and who's got more knowledge than me? So I went back to my doctor's surgery and I told them, I said, this is what's happening with me and I need to see somebody, and I spoke to a doctor and I told him everything that I'd been feeling and thinking. And he said, you have severe claustrophobia and you have severe anxiety. And he offered me some tablets, some medication. And he said, this should help. I I was always a bit funny about taking medication again because obviously I've just come off cocodamol, right?
Mhm.
And in my head, I'm thinking, is it a good idea to go back on medication again? Because what if I develop another problem based on this. So I didn't take the medication. And one of my friends actually said to me, look, try to do it without the medication. And I'm not gonna lie, like it was terrifying because all of a sudden I had really bad anxiety and I couldn't be by myself. It was like I couldn't trust myself to be by myself and be okay.
Hmm.
I felt like I needed somebody with me. And so it was almost like overnight, everything had changed in my life. I was now a completely different person.
So can we give this some perspective? How long ago was this?
So this was in 2019.
Okay, so this is relatively recent. And you don't think it had anything to do with the pandemic issue, the COVID-19 at all? Or,
It was before that. It was actually before COVID, before we knew about COVID.
okay,
It was all going on before I knew about COVID. It was like May 2019.
okay. So you had your
But
panic attack, you saw the doctor, you were skittish about the medication, and a friend suggested don't take the medication or
yeah,
try it without the medication. Try living without medication.
yeah,
Okay. And so you tried. Did you
yeah.
try?
I mean, yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
well, the story is that I did it without the medication.
Well,
I
then
got to got back
talk
to
to us
normal.
about that. Yeah.
So instead of medication, I decided to learn more about it. So I wanted to learn about what is claustrophobia, right?
Mhm.
What is anxiety? What does it mean? How do I get rid, more importantly, how do I get rid of anxiety, right? How do I get rid of it? And it was funny because the one thing I needed to do was to accept it. And the more I fought it and resisted it and denied it to myself, the more difficult things got and the more anxious I became. Um, but when I started to learn about it and I started to teach myself what is my body telling me and why is it telling me these things,
Mhm.
when I started to understand what is the amygdala, right? What happens in the brain when you have a panic attack? I went into like extreme detail. I did extreme research. I wanted to know everything about it. And the interesting thing is, the more I learned about it, the better I became. So I began to recognize the things that were happening and why they were happening. And as a result of that, I managed to slow down what was going on. I managed to find ways to create a gap between me being in a situation and me reacting. And
Mhm.
the gap was key.
So talk to us about what you learned. So
So
what causes at least your anxiety and claustrophobia? Because it's
so
probably
what
personal to the individual. So what causes it to occur with you?
so what caused it to occur with me was, it was like a combination of negative thinking and the withdrawal of the medication. So
Okay.
it was that combination really, because I'd been feeling so negative about myself, right? So I must have subconsciously been telling myself, I can't trust myself. I can't look after myself, right? Like, what have I done to myself? A lot of blame, a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment.
Well, are
You
these
know,
words that you're talking, saying out loud, or are these just thoughts in your head?
these were
Thoughts in your head.
internal
Okay.
dialogue, you know, and I hadn't even realized I was doing that
Okay.
until I started to watch, because I'm a Christian, so I started to look for encouragement in the form of sermons because I wasn't going outside. I could
Okay.
I had really bad agoraphobia as well because I was so embarrassed about the things that I was struggling with. Um, and you don't, it might not be spoken about a lot, but you do get stigmatized when, you're functioning completely normally, and then all of a sudden you're afraid of something, or you're afraid of going out on the street. You can't get in a car, right? You will get that stigma that, oh, she's gone a bit weird, or oh, you know,
What's wrong with
let's
her,
just
right?
avoid
Yeah, yeah,
her, you
yeah.
know. Uh, but these sermons were fantastic because it was like they were unpicking the negative thoughts. They were detangling my mind in the sense of like I'd been telling myself, oh, I'm useless, right? I have no purpose, okay, because I can't do things. So I have no worth, right?
Mhm.
But these sermons were really helpful because they were saying, no, you do have a worth. You are precious, right? You're a creation of God. You're God's child. So therefore you are precious. Um, and there was also another one that said, well, you need to understand that your job is not who you are, right? Your things that you do, that's not who you are. Who you are is your identity. So I began exploring that, you know, according to me, what is my identity and what should it be?
That's a
So
good
from,
question. What should it be?
and I really, really went into that, and I realized that the label that I was giving myself was I'm Joe. I'm the person who works. I'm the breadwinner. And that's it. That's me. But I realized that there's so much more to who I am. That's not who I am. You know what I mean?
Well, no,
I'm a
tell us, who are you? I mean, that's what we want to get to. So, what did you find out about yourself?
so, I found out, that I am a kind person. I'm a quick learner. I'm empathetic. I am strong, right? I'm determined. I'm creative. There were so many other segments of me that I'd never thought about, I'd not realized, I'd never given myself credit for.
Hmm.
And through learning my identity and learning who I really am and the fact that I do have worth, you know, it led to a sort of spiral upwards to, okay, so I'm not useless, right? I am capable of XYZ, okay? So therefore, I will be capable of doing XYZ in the future. So it went from I'm claustrophobic, I'm anxious, I'm this. I was just labeling myself as I am this thing, right? And it went from that to no, 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 that's not me. That's just something that's happening to me. That's something that will change. It can change. It will change.
Hmm.
And that brought a huge shift because the more positive messages that I was hearing, um, the more confidence built up in me to try, right? To at least try. Okay, I might panic, right? But why don't I try it? Why don't I just try and stand on the street, or try not to be afraid of the fact that it's gone dark, right? There were so many irrational fears within me, but faith helped massively
Well, can I go
in this.
back to the sermons? So you said you were Christian. So that means did you go back into the church, or did you
Yeah.
listen to things on radio? I mean, where did these messages come from?
Well, I mean, it was online when I
Okay.
couldn't go outside, but then I managed to sort of do some self-exposure therapy, I guess, where I would stand on the street and I would just wait and I would just see what would happen. And I would tell myself things that would counteract my fear, right? So the fear was these buildings are going to crush me.
Well, yeah.
So I would tell myself and I would find the rational sentence, to counteract it. no, buildings can't move. And it really started from that. It was such a basic thing, but it was about retraining the brain to understand what is a lie and what is the truth. Because when you're thinking with your anxious mind, you're thinking with your, I guess, caveman mind, your limbic system, which is
Well,
there's a
tell me.
saber-tooth
Well, yeah,
tiger.
tell me. You said you went into the deep dive and you learned how the brain at least works a little bit. So how does the brain work? Why does it rationalize fear and then how does it now rationalize that that's not rational?
So basically, when anxiety and panic happen, the place where your thoughts are generated changes. What I mean by that is, instead of thinking with your prefrontal cortex, which is where your critical thinking is, your rational thinking, your practical mind,
Okay.
yeah, it bypasses that and goes straight into the limbic system, the amygdala, which is the alarm clock. It goes straight to the alarm clock. Oh, danger, 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 danger. And what happens then is that the chemical adrenaline is released. And that is when your breathing changes. That's when you get sweaty. That is when you have dizziness. It's all a case of the alarm clock is going off for
Mhm.
no reason. It's a false alarm that's happening because of the thought that you're telling yourself to fuel the same reaction. So when I realized that instead of thinking with my rational brain, I'm now thinking with my amygdala, I wanted to find out how do I change that? And so the answer was use rational sentences. Remind yourself of the truth. So so I'm on the street, palpitations are happening, hands are getting sweaty, dizziness is going on. And in the middle of it, I've closed my eyes. And I've closed my eyes and I've said to myself, but the buildings cannot move. The buildings are not going to move. You will be okay. And then what I also did is I backed that up with scripture, because obviously
Are there
I
scriptures
have
about buildings? I'm
scripture,
confused.
biblical scripture.
Okay,
So
well,
in the
tell me which ones you used.
yeah, so for example, I used it's from Psalm 27. So basically it says, when the wicked advance against me to devour me, it's my enemies that will stumble and fall. Though an army besieges me, my heart will not fear. And though war breaks out against me, even then I'll be confident. So the reason why I used that one was because my thoughts were wicked against me. So it was like when my wicked thoughts come against me,
Mm.
I'm not going to fear. Even though war is breaking out in my mind, I'm going to be confident.
Well, how did
So
you
it was,
learn to feel? Because there has to be there has to be that release that says your brain's telling you to be afraid. You're trying to force it not to be afraid. At some point, there has to be that transition where you are not afraid. How does that happen? I mean, or
well,
or
I told
or
my,
can go ahead.
so it was through that, that influx of positivity that was coming in through the sermons. And also it was through the research that I was doing, learning about the brain and learning about why do these things happen and how do these things happen? How can you increase anxiety and how can you decrease anxiety? And it
So
was,
so your words then what I'm understanding is literally the words that you used, the words that you spoke, the words that you thought about were creating how you responded to your world.
yes,
Okay. Okay.
new neural pathways. So new thought processes were creating new neural pathways in the brain, which created a different brain. Because what happens is when you tell yourself something or when you believe something
Mhm.
and you keep believing it, you're creating a neural pathway.
Mhm.
And if you do that over the space of 30 days, you have what's called neuroplasticity, which means that your brain actually changes. And like I said, the research that I did told me a lot about how to do that, right? How do you create new neural pathways? How do you make neuroplasticity happen?
Wow.
Right? With the examples of people who have done this. I started following a gentleman called Tony Robbins,
Mhm.
and he is a fantastic motivational speaker and an NLP master practitioner. And he got me interested in NLP. Now, just to give you an idea of what NLP is, when I say that, um, NLP,
Neuro-linguistic programming.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, neuro linguistic programming. And
Mhm.
it's basically looking at the patterns that you create in your mind through your beliefs.
Mhm.
So, what are you believing? So, what are you reacting to? What's the truth and what's a lie? And if you believe the lie, how do you behave? What does that get you? What do you achieve?
Right.
And if you believe the truth, what does that get you? And it was really helpful for me, so helpful. I deep dived into NLP and I decided to get NLP coaching. So I basically took whatever resources you could possibly imagine and I
Mhm.
used them all. So I used the spirituality as in my body is my body, right?
Right.
It's not my spirit, right? So my body is telling me something else, but my spirit is telling me something else. So I used that as well. That when my body is shaking, my spirit can still believe I'm okay. So, it was using the spirituality, using the NLP, and using the knowledge that I was receiving from the research that I was doing.
So
And it was
it's 2020. So we're 3 year, almost 4 years since that, critical incident occurred to you. How are you now? And who are
I
you now?
and who am I, did
Yeah,
you
and
say?
because you said part of your journey was to discover who you were
Yeah.
because you kept on putting labels on you. Now we still
Yeah.
we do use labels, but now I think you use them for
Positive.
you use positive labels, right? So who are
Yeah.
you now?
So now I am a child of God.
Okay.
I am a pillar of encouragement. I am a light. I'm positive light. My name actually means
What
light.
what what Joe T?
Jyoti means light. It means
Because if you
holy.
transcribe the letters, you spell joy.
There you go.
Okay. Just I just didn't know if you knew that, but I saw it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you bring joy to other people.
Yes. Yes. And now it's not a case of like my purpose is to work and, just work for myself and just have material things. My purpose now is to change the way that people with these issues are are dealing with it, are being treated, to help change that stigma and change the label and encourage those people who have anxiety or claustrophobia to not label themselves as that and to see that no, I'm so much more than that. So now it's Jyoti, the NLP trainer and practitioner.
Is it really? Are you certified?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so when I say I did a full deep dive into NLP therapy, it was amazing because my coach was incredible, and he was the one who encouraged me to become a practitioner because he said, I know you believe in this so much and you've had so much progress. I mean, when we talk about progress, I now have been in a lift that went to the 52nd floor of the Shard in London. I climbed up a mountain in the Dolomites on a cable car and then climbed physically to the edge of it. So
Oh my gosh.
I'm a completely different person in the sense that even things that I wouldn't have done before
Yeah,
everything happened, I'm doing even more than I would have done then, you know?
great.
Like I'm so much less fearful. I'm just so much more fearless, you know? Um,
Well,
I've
congratulations.
spoken on stage. There's so many things I've done, honestly.
Well, that's a lot to for me to take in. And for one, I just want to congratulate you, honestly, because you took um y- you faced fear, literally, you faced fear and you've overcome it. Now, I I'm gonna put it in the description when we air this or when I air this on YouTube and share this with everybody. The disclaimer here is don't do what Joe did without consulting a doctor because there's medication involved. So I have to add that disclaimer. But
100%.
with your intent, and I call it intent, with your intention, and with what everything that was inside of you and your spirit and your soul and what you knew you had to do to overcome your circumstances because they were all your brain was taking over and it was taking over in a bad way. You faced that and you've overcome it. And so, one, that's fantastic. And two, there's other people out there that I've talked with that I think would love to have a conversation with you. Either they've shared similar experiences or because they probably just need to talk to you. And just to
Amazing.
find out, how to get, how to face their fears
Absolutely,
and overcome them.
and I'm loving the fact that, I can now see these people who are suffering,
Mhm.
I had the huge honor of speaking at a Christian ladies women's conference, and I was able to encourage these people who are suffering still, and I was able to tell them there is a way out, you know, and you will absolutely get through this, and it meant so much to them. And to be in a position, right, where you've gone through the tunnel, okay,
Mhm.
you've gone through the deepest, darkest, scariest tunnel, and you've made it out the other side and you've seen the light now. So what you want to do is you want to tell everybody else you'll get to the light. You know what I mean? You'll get there.
Mhm.
So to be in that position is just an absolute blessing and an absolute privilege.
Well, now
Absolute
I
privilege.
want to call you Joy and not Joe, but that would be incorrect of me because now that's kind of what I see because the smile and the light and just quite literally the joy that's on your face right now is incredible. And so it's just a natural part of who you are. And we wanted to keep it there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, there are so many amazing things that I have learned and so many skills. And that's what made me want to become an NLP practitioner so that I have a way that I can help these people in practical ways, to
Mhm.
do to do what they need to do to progress. They don't have to come off the medication. They can be on medication and still take advice from me or still have coaching. It's not, a case of I'm saying that medication isn't good. No, it's just a case of I did it without.
You still have to
You
train the brain how to think. Yeah,
absolutely. I
yeah.
truly do believe that if you can train the brain how to think, and if you can really get within yourself and really see what is the root issue? Why do you feel the way you are feeling? What are
Mm,
the patterns that you go through, right? What are the moods that you frequently feel yourself going through? And why are they there?
yeah.
If you can get to that stage where you can analyze your emotions, you're gonna get there because it means that you'll recognize where it's stemming from, what's creating more stress within you, which is then creating anxiety within you. There are so many ways to help a person who is struggling with mental health, with these particular issues of mental health, agoraphobia, claustrophobia, and anxiety. It's all about limiting beliefs. It's all about what you're believing.
So with that, and just a limited time left in the conversation, what what's your goals for 2023? As we move into the new year, and how are you going to share your experiences and your joy with others?
So my goal for 2023 is I'm going to be rolling out training in churches, and I'm going to be teaching people about NLP.
Good,
And I'm also going to be practicing individually as well.
good,
And I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna do a blog. Um, that is definitely something in the works. I really think that's gonna be so helpful. I'm gonna write a blog about it, for everyone to read and
good.
to just stand, and see if they want to try it.
That sounds like anything. If throughout 2023 and beyond, if I could help in any way, or at least support and assist you in getting the message out, just let me know. Um, Before we go, I usually say, well, last time we had a talk, I said, give me a word of hope. Today, Joe, give me a word of joy for our audience, and then we'll call it a day. What's a word of joy? Is there a word of joy?
There is a word of joy.
Tell me.
Um, so the word of joy would be, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So, what that means is like have joy in the fact that you are a beautiful creation. You've been created. You don't need to be anything apart from what you are. What you are is enough. And have joy in the fact that you are wonderfully made.
That was perfect. So let's go ahead and end the conversation. And with that, this has been another edition of the Question Guy podcast. Jyoti Sarda, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.